Ladies and gentlemen, this fight is for the interim featherweight championship.
He's a dangerous man.
9 straight for Max Holloway.
He has dynamic striking.
He ran off the wall like a ninja. Showtime!
This is gonna get crazy.
Cerrone.
That round. Oh my goodness.
Swanson. Joy!
Wow! Look how crazy this main card is.
Welcome to a special UFC 206 DraftKings breakdown. Paul Shaughnessy and Cody Saftik here with you, going through our teams for UFC 206. If you already caught the Albany breakdown, I didn't feel as comfortable with my team. I really like my team on this one.
Ooh, you like your team here.
But
well, then why don't you?
I'm going to lead it off. I got Do Ho Choi.
Yeah.
Do Ho Choi. All he does is finish guys off in the first round. This is obviously his toughest fight of his career, but I think the guy just over the
You're
course.
sold
of
on him. Okay.
I'm sold.
Yeah,
He's gonna
yeah.
land. He's gonna land that right. And so far, it's like when Connor was rising up through the ranks.
Fair.
When Connor landed that left, people went to sleep. When Du lands that right, people go to sleep, and they go to sleep in the first round. He's 8,900. He's actually not even the most expensive guy on the board, which I thought, ooh, even more value on the play. I got Max Holloway, 5-round fight. I just think he's gonna stay super active and basically outpoint Anthony Pettis. We've seen him. He just throws a lot of volume. So I think over the course of a 5-round fight, there's a potential for a late fourth round type of finish. But if it goes all the 5 rounds, like I can see him easily getting over that 100-point threshold, maybe into the 120 range, just landing more strikes than Anthony Pettis. We got Lando Venata. I was impressed by his toughness and his grit and his mobility in his fight against Tony Ferguson. That was a much bigger lightweight opponent. Now he's taking on McDessie, who is much more closer to his own actual size. I think he styles here. This is a good situation for him. And plus, we can't forget that after Donald Cowboy Cerrone broke McDessie's jaw, the guy was talking about leaving the sport, and he doesn't really train at TriStar anymore. So there's a lot of question marks about John McDessie at this point in his career. And I think Lando Venata is set up in a spot for him to shine against a guy who's going to stand there and trade with him. We got Nikita Krylov. Now, you could also take Shurkanov. I know everyone is basically split down the middle on this fight. And, it's very I can see both outcomes. But we're talking about DraftKings, and you gotta put your balls out on the line sometimes here. And I could see Krylov, his path to victory is likely try to get this guy out of here relatively early, whether it's the first round or the second round. Land a big head kick, land some big strikes. If it turns into he's getting taken down and grounded and grappled, it's not going to end very well for him. But you have to risk a little bit in DraftKings, as we know. You can't always just love every single person. And if things are going well for Krylov, it could be a short night, and he could score over 100 points here. Kelvin Gastelum, 7,900. I actually already liked him from a betting perspective at at plus 140, plus 135. I think he's around right now. I just think he kind of outpoints Tim Kennedy. I think he's just a little bit faster, a little bit quicker on his feet. If Kennedy's not able to take him down, I just see Kennedy, who is kind of 1 foot in, 1 foot out of the game right now as it is. And
can I just bring up a quick point on that
What's
fight that we never really talked about during 206? But just a quick question I have for you, right? So when Tim Kennedy left, he was a contender. And now that he's coming back, we don't know if he's still contender Tim. But if he is contender Tim, shouldn't he smash up Kelvin Gastelum? And let me just bring up this one point. We've seen what Tim Kennedy can do against Michael Bisping. He routed him on a 5-rounder. Mm-hmm. We've seen what he can do against Yoel Romero. Competitive fight. He got knocked out, but he had some moments. We've seen what he can do against Luke Rockhold and what he can do against Jacare and what he can do against the top-end guys of the division. He can hang tough. He's a tough guy. What would Kelvin Gastelum do against any of those guys? Kelvin Gastelum would get absolutely annihilated.
Against Michael Bisping?
No, he probably beats Bisping. He routes him in a 5-rounder just like Tim Kennedy did. But those other guys probably beat him real bad. And then I thought to myself,
I would be scared for Kelvin against Yoel.
But that's why Kelvin fights at welterweight, right? He can fight Nate Marquardt at 185. He can fight some guys at 185, but he can fight non-contenders at 185, and he can fight the best guys at 170. He can't fight the best guys at 185, but Tim Kennedy can. He's already proven against that level. So just one little grain of salt, because I was starting to talk myself into Kelvin a little more. I was like, geez, I like this guy. And I look at tape on him, and I'm like, I don't even know what he's doing with his hands right now. He's got awesome punch output, but it's all over the place. And I'm starting to get back on TK, Tim Kennedy for the win. But in a situation like this, you got someone who's very well priced in Gastelum, who if he does score a 3-rounder, you're looking at a good point.
And honestly, I've been saying to people around the office, I don't think this whole UFC 206, the matchmaking is impeccable. I don't think there's a single person that you're just like, lock. That guy's a complete lock.
Yeah.
Like, I can make an argument for anybody on this card, to be perfectly honest. I'm going to still stick with Kelvin Gastelum. I think he's got a chip on his shoulder. This is a spot for him to kind of, he kind of came in against Marquardt after he had failed to make weight before, and he had all of that drama with a chip on his shoulder. Like, I got to show them what I can do at 185 pounds. And when he's on, he's a force to be reckoned with. Just ask Johnny Hendricks in that last fight. Finally, we got Matthew Lopez, 7,300. A little bit, I needed to go a little bit cheaper, and I like his chances against Mitch Gagnon here, especially Mitch Gagnon with all the question marks of his injury, and he's had a whole bunch of time off. Where's he at in his training? I'm sure he's going to show up in shape, ready to go. But I think Lopez, it's a decent stylistic matchup as long as he doesn't get caught in that guillotine.
Yeah, you want to avoid the guillotine at all costs. In fact, you just want to, even though he's a grappler, he's a wrestler, and that's kind of where he wants to fight. Mitch Gagnon's just so much more physically strong than him that one's a tough fight. And I say that because I ended up with Lopez as well, $7,600. I just really couldn't pass it up. But starting up at the top, I feel you very much so. Max Holloway, same page here, $8,800. The things that Pettis doesn't do well are the things that Max Holloway strives in. And you made such a great point when we were talking about it on Bookie Beatdown, where at the end of that third round against Lamas, where he's just pointing at the ground, like, let's do this. And he's swinging. And then he jumps up the cage and he's fired up. It's like, that's what he looks like after 15 hard-fought minutes. Anthony Pettis, like 2 rounds in against Charles Oliveira, he's like, it's just like, ooh.
I'll give Pettis this, though. He does look a little bit better.
Well, it's his
this
second
time
weight
around.
cut.
Second weight cut, and he's with a new dietitian as well this time around.
Yeah, and apparently he's got a new car salesman as well, like just new guy that like sells him cars because the other ones keep getting torched. But hopefully for my GPP sakes, he himself also gets torched by Max Holloway.
Yep.
Lando Venata, $8,700. I know what I said about John Makdessi, and I think Makdessi does have a chance to win this, but in DraftKings, you got to go for it. You can make a case for all the underdogs. I get it, but Lando Venata, you want a guy that's going to go for it, and that's exactly what he does against Tony Ferguson. It's a multitude of combinations. His timing is just really funky. His angles are really funky, and against someone traditional against John Makdessi, all you got to do is connect on him a few times, and he starts to worry. In his last fight against Mehdi Baghdad, he got hurt really bad against Mehdi Baghdad. So I have to assume this is a tougher situation against Lando Venata. And you had a great point against the Donald Cerrone thing. He breaks his jaw, and it's not so much the talking about retirement. That's a big thing. It's not so much saying, I'm too small to be at 55, I want to go down to 45. It's not so much the leaving TriStar. It's the fact that when he took the kick, he called a timeout, right? Len Venata lands a beautiful kick on Tony Ferguson, and Tony Ferguson would never call a timeout. So he scrambles, he gets dropped again. He scrambles, gets dropped again. But that perseverance allows Tony Ferguson to come back. If Len Venata lands those same shots on John Makdessi, he's going to be calling a timeout. So, for DraftKings purposes, $8,700, actually pretty fairly priced. I like Venata. $8,400 Valerie Letourneau. She has to have a good weight cut. She has to be able to get on the scale. And then the thing is, what I see from her, especially when it's after the fact weigh-ins, it's not a direct indication of what I'm going to get when she steps into the cage. But there's no denying she's that much bigger. She has good hands. She does have good hands. And
She's got like a 6 or 7 inch reach advantage.
And a 7-foot height advantage. And I think she's so much bigger. She's got such world-class experience. If you just think to yourselves, look at American Top Team. And American Top Team having Tisha Torres and having Jessica Aguilar and having Joanna and Jacek that just moved to there. They have one of the most, Nina Ansaroff, Amanda Nunez. They have one fantastic women's team. And I think that this is a great feel for her. She'll be able to improve leaps and bounds over there. And when you look at this situation against Viviane Pereira, I'm taking a short notice fight out of my comfort zone. You know how cold it is in Canada compared to Brazil? We've never been to Brazil, but you can tell me how cold it is in Canada. It's extremely cold. That stuff makes you sick, and then that stuff makes you just out of it, and then your warm-up's different. To be honest, $8,400, not the worst price. I want fast finishes. This one might be a drag amount affair that you have to pound her out late, but she does have a chance for a finish.
Your team seems more like a cash game team here, I think.
Well, that's because I have Olivia Obey-Mercier, she's just going to grind it out. But...
And I think Letourneau, there's a high probability that it could go to decision. Max Holloway, he seems safe. I don't think he's going to get... But that being said, a guy like Pettis could just jump off the cage and and knock him out. But
Well,
that's-
anything could happen,
anything
sure.
can
But
happen.
with Olivier Aubé-Mercier, if you look at his average being 73.4 and the guy never does anything, against Tony Sims, he's scored 4 significant strikes, but he scored 5 takedowns. And that's what he does.
The grappling game these days gets paid
that's
a
what
lot
I'm
more,
saying.
too.
So
yeah.
you take the guy down.
And nobody's going to own him.
The takedown's 5 points, and then also you get to side control, you get to half guard, then you get to side control, then you take his back, then you mount him, then he scrambles back up. So you take him back down. And it's the same thing in that. Listen, you can boo the guy, and he doesn't
Each
care.
one of those sequences are
So
paying
now-
like 15 points kind of thing.
Yeah, and now they're
Yeah.
going to be cheering him. Whereas normally they're like, oh my God, what's he doing right now? Now they're going to be like, yeah, take him out, right? It's like, all right, cool. So he's going to be able to score a decent amount. I think he's, I don't want to say fairly on the safe side, but he has a game plan. He sticks to the game plan. I like guys that fight like that. Misha Cherkinov, $8,100. Just got to go on the other side of the fence. Someone's going to beat the other guy. Someone's going to finish the other guy. Who do you feel more comfortable with? Striker versus grappler. Traditionally, it's always been grappler. Strikers are starting to catch up if they have a good takedown defense. Not sold on Krylov's takedown defense, and I just know if Misha gets him down, he's breaking something or choking him out. So I hope he gets to the ground. One thing I'm worried
I
about,
don't.
he's very stiff and robotic. And Krylov is very just blast you. So he's
Yeah.
got to be smart.
I hope
he's gotta
you're wrong
time
on
it.
this one.
He's got to get the takedown. don't be putting your bank account on Nikita Krylov, people. And then finishing up Matthew Lopez. I would avoid this one. As I already talked about, I'm a big Mitch Gagnon fan. I love everything about Mitch Gagnon. The price is obviously right on Matthew Lopez at $7,600. There's a lot of worries. And then the final thing, Paul, is there's a small, just tiny, like honestly, like the smallest smidget of a chance that Mitch Gagnon is cursed, because I kept trying to pull him versus Renan Barão onto my computer at work, and it crashes my system horrendously. So clearly the file's corrupt, but what's up with that? Why is it corrupt, Paul? Illuminati might tell you there's something there. All I'm saying.
Who knows where we got that footage from either? So,
No, the UFC says this is corrupt.
no, that happens.
To
all
the T.
That happens all the time.
Crashed my computer. Like bad.
Good to know. I'll make mental note never to pull down that fight.
Don't delete it.
That is it for the DraftKings breakdown of UFC 206. Thanks to our boy, Director Arap, doing the sweet cuts behind the glass in the place for Hollywood Chase Kaiser. Thanks to Cody Saftik bringing down the fights with me. And good luck out there, guys. Lots of fights, lots of fun. And, yeah, bye and good luck.